So in the last stages of packing here in my apartment, I found my old watch collection and I rediscovered two things. First one is that apparently when I was collecting watches back in the day, I really liked Casio. And number two is that the technology behind watches is really cool. You have things like quartz watches, mechanical watches, and I guess technically if you want to count it, you also have smartwatches. Starting off with the easiest one to explain, a smartwatch is literally just like your smartphone. It's got a processor, it's got a battery, it connects to the internet, and it can pull the time as well as tons of other data. If you know how your smartphone works, that's how a smartwatch works. But where it gets interesting is when we start getting into regular watches. So starting out with mechanical watches, these things are super cool. As the name implies, they are mechanical. There are no batteries, and you'll notice the second hand actually sweeps very smoothly. That's because inside this watch is what's called a mainspring, and this mainspring is wound either by hand or by an automatic movement, and it will release that tension through a series of gears called the gear train. This gear train moves the second hand, the minute hand, and the hour hand at a known speed, which is how it is able to keep time. One of the most important pieces of the movement is the escapement, which you can see moving back and forth right there. That is the tick-tock that you get from the clock, and it's what releases that spring movement in a controlled fashion. Now, those three components are pretty consistent across all mechanical watches, the mainspring, the gear train, and the escapement, but other components are added to add what are called complications. That's where you get things like chronographs with stopwatches and stuff like that. We're not getting into that today. And lastly, when it comes to automatic versus manually wound movements, it's literally in the name. Automatics have weights, so as you move around, it will wind the watch automatically, whereas manually wound watches have to be wound, well, manually through the crown. Now, next up is the most common kind of watch that you've actually probably worn at some point in your life, which is a quartz watch. Quartz watches are renowned for their accuracy as well as the ability to add things like chronographs and other complications without it being as expensive as doing it mechanically. And it is also the most affordable movement type that you can get in a watch. So the way a quartz watch works is actually really cool because it has a quartz crystal inside, as the name implies, and there is a current run through it that causes that quartz crystal to vibrate at a known frequency. That known frequency is 32,768 hertz, which means that's how many times that crystal vibrates per second. Knowing that number means that you can run that frequency through an integrated circuit and detect 1 second for every 32,768 vibrations. Now, how that data is used just depends on which kind of watch you're wearing. If you're using an analog watch, it'll use that data to send out a pulse every second to move the second hand. In the case that you're wearing a digital watch, it'll send that same pulse, but it sends it to the other integrated circuit that's being used to display the digital time. Either method of timekeeping, in my opinion, is extremely cool because they are both very complex in their own ways and yet presented in such a simple manner, which is timekeeping. It's so cool, and I'm really glad I rediscovered my watch collection and learned all this. So let me know if you all learned something in the comments down below.